We're talking banking this morning. We have LC Awaji, is a deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana, is with the Super Morning Show this morning. So from 7:30, we have to also get snippets of information and get some of the content she's delivering out there to you. But our main conversation is with Professor John Gachi.
That's right, and we'll be trying to understand how the Ghana Amalgamated Trust will work, all the modalities around it, and how indeed they chose the 5 indigenous banks that are going to benefit from it. And what's the value of these banks? How much will the trust own of each bank? Oh gosh, we have questions. We'll ask them all today and hopefully get a full understanding of how the banking sector is being revamped under Dr. Ernest Addison.
Yeah, definitely. But right now, let's look at the few newspapers we have in the studio. Which one do you want to start with?
Oh, gosh, sure, I don't mind. I'll take the
Daily Graphic.
Daily Graphic and the Finder look good to me. Daily Graphic. Banner headline, ADISCO and Nandom heads hot.
That's your school, right? ADISCO?
No, I went to August school. But we certainly did have an affinity with the ADISCO boys. It was the Boucher ones that we didn't quite understand. But anyway, ADISCO and Nandom heads hot for violation of GES procedures and illegal collection of fees. Well. Encroachers disrupt Accra-Tema rail service, and gosh, this picture tells 1,000 stories right here. And also, let MPs remain legislators. Professor Bonzi Simpson said this yesterday in his lecture, and I thoroughly enjoyed that lecture, I've got to say. That was some good stuff. On the back page of the Daily Graphic, and I've got a mutilated back page, unfortunately, but Chinese embassy supports Chimerisa Methodist School. That's the banner headline. Oh, well, it's not banner, it's on the back page. And then digital waste solution system to be introduced. It'll be piloted here in the Greater Accra region, and then hopefully the other regions will benefit from it. Digital waste solution. Sounds fascinating, huh?
Digital waste.
Yes. Shall we do the
electronic
Finder?
Waste. I think that's what they mean.
What's that? Electronic waste, e-waste. Possibly. All right. Well, the Finder newspaper makes its first appearance in 2019, and banner headline is Encroachers Scuttle Tema Accra Rail Service. Minister directs 2-week special exercise to clear them. Wow. This is something uniquely Ghanaian, if you ask me. Unipass to be fully deployed within 25 months. Also, former UT and Capital Bank staff still unpaid. UT Bank, that's 2 years ago now, right?
Yes. We're in the third year. But I think it's just 2 years and about 3 months.
Yeah.
Yes. But we're told that they fall down the pecking order. What the structure of liquidation and receivership is, right?
The staff. Yes, we've heard that argument several times.
Well,
but the question
I know that you've challenged that before.
Yes, because it's not a liquidation.
Yeah.
You know, they were added to Ghana Commercial Bank. Their assets were added to Ghana Commercial Bank.
You've held that argument for that conviction for a long time.
Kamaria too needs financial assistance. This is a picture calling for some aid for a young girl who has a rather
I'm sure has a growth.
sad condition. Yes, a growth on her face. Very sad. Okay, well, that's me.
Well, let's look at the Ghanaian Times. That's on the front page. The maiden Constitution Day public lecture. President Akufo-Addo interacting with Professor Michael Quay, Speaker of Parliament, and some ministers of state. And the main banner headline reads, "Make Constitution functional to promote effective performance of constitutional bodies." Professor Bonzi Simpson was at his wit end, but also a delight just to listen to. I listened, I didn't watch. And you know, he intersperses all that with some great humor as well. Sometimes when the mic will not work, we'll make some, I need to meet the man. I haven't met him. He's a great man. I loved what he delivered yesterday. I hope that we'll put all that into practice. Cucumbers and chocosis call for an end to deadly clashes, and we know that it's coming out of Chireponi, who will be there this morning as well.
Who are they calling? for this
call
end.
for an end. Both of them, they are calling
Each other for an end.
sure.
Okay.
Police begin investigation into cop's suicide. And we know that Mr. Ahmed committed suicide. It was reported widely yesterday. On the back page of the Ghanaian Times, Bureau of Ghana Languages owes printing firms some 300,000 Ghana cedis. It's a lot of money.
It is. Bureau of Ghana Languages.
USAID prays for transforming Agric in the north. Bureau of Ghana, shouldn't they be adding it to University of Ghana or something of the sort?
What? Bureau of
They need to be
Languages.
amalgamated into. Anyway, let's go to the Daily Guide newspaper. So we have on the front page of the Daily Guide newspaper, editorial changes at DGN. How Cocoa Board cash landed at Heritage Bank, the inside story. But I know Kojo will share with you what the content of press statement is coming from the former board. They've been dissolved now. I mean,
I believe they have.
by technical
yes, they no
processes.
longer
are
are
in
board,
existence. Yes.
Can we load that, because I'll read it. I'll read it in just a moment.
Okay, the statement. So we have the statement from the former board of GHL, no, Heritage Bank, so to speak. Ghana Health Service boss fires an abyssio over drones, naked pictures. Scramble for new regional capitals begins. And we know that we said this, you know, after we fight for the regions, then various groupings will come looking for their areas to be named as regional capitals. Always happen for districts. We have metropolitan areas, etc. On the back page of the Daily Guide, we have CK Akono bemoans possession. 11Y set to celebrate 100 years, and Anan Ketier's picture is there. He's the Mahin of Isikado. And we have Amponsa retains Captain 1 Golf Society Trophy. Could you just announce to us that he started playing golf the first time?
Started learning.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fascinating game.
Yeah. We have Daily Statesman newspaper. So the front page of the Daily Statesman newspaper has these stories. Amedu under pressure to prosecute corrupt officials. Free ride for railway commuters from today. And Abudu's commend Ekufuado for peace in Dagbang. But the main story, January 7 is Ghana's Day of Destiny, says Professor Michael Quay. And I'm told that conspicuously absent were the opposition parties at yesterday's event. I don't know whether all of them, but you know that at least the Nkrumahs, the NDC.
They were invited, right?
Yes, I'm told that even on the program they were supposed to give some solidarity speeches. Because, you know, there have been main players in this dispensation in the Fourth Republic from 1993. Jack Foundation explains why no penalties were played in Kotoko Ash Gold draw. Okay. All right. So.
Right. Okay. Well, let's settle.
Yeah.
So encroachers are on the railway. Oh, okay. I wonder if anyone else can grasp the absurdity of this situation. So they are insisting that they have a right to be on this railway. They have more of a right than the train to be on the railway. So they are there. And in spite of the fact that they want to open the service from Tema to Accra, these people will not budge. So they are saying, what are they saying exactly? Do they want the train to go around them? or what? Or they don't want the railway service to happen? They feel that they have a right to... No, can they see that it is a train track that they are on? Are they trains? So why do they feel they have a right to be on the track more than a train? And why is it going to take 2 weeks to clear them? Just send the first train. They should stay if they want to.
It's a humanitarian issue.
Okay. I don't think they consider this a humanitarian issue. They think they are trains, not humans. So what's the humanitarian issue here? Why would you? Why? Okay, so I understand why they may have been there historically, because there wasn't a train service. So the space, became used for other things. But the very day they tell you that we have resumed the service, this thing is now going to be used, why fight it? Why disagree?
Evict yourself.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, at this point, what further conversation is required?
But Koji, you know that we have the tendency to let situations fester.
Oh, yes.
And even if you look at many of the developmental projects that we tend to undertake in our country, a chunk of the funding is devoted to compensation. And you are a planner, so it helps to put matters into perspective.
Yeah.
And before you undertake any kind of development, ideally, if it was, let's say, in the UK or in the US or in the more developed country, you have to go see the municipal or the county office. Then they'll give you permits. Attached to the permits will then give you the extent of demarcations and whether the land that you have bought or purchased. Yeah. Even in the developing country, you wouldn't even purchase or you will not be sold to a land that already is supposed to be used for something else. So that even won't happen in the first place. But ours, it happens.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to go to the MMDA, go and find out whether where you have your property, it is on an existing public space.
Yeah.
And if you look at the regulations of the authority, the Ghana Railway Authority, you are supposed to have a 50-meter buffer from the rail line up to where the next settlement should be. And one, the Railway Authority itself has not been able to enforce that regulation.
Yeah.
And the encroachers who usually will be squatters, and lately we have developers, especially when you go to the enclave around airports, you have big people who have bought land close to the railway, then it also means that we've also, as a people, flouted those regulations.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue.
And
so now it's a humanitarian issue, I believe. That's why it's going to take 2 weeks.
And there are a number of locations here in Accra where the squatting is happening along the same railway line. So Aveno, Graphic Road, Jowlu, Dome, Tesano, Achimota, Agbobloshi, all along the rail line. They've occupied either directly on the rail lines or very close to the edges. And there's a picture that really tells the whole story on page 5 of the Finder. It's a black and white picture, but boy, it does depict the reality of it. Several umbrellas covering people's tabletop shops. As far as the eye can see, people just doing commerce on the railway lines, and look, for some things, I don't think an explanation is required. And this whole thing about compensation is amusing to me. You've squatted on my property. Now I'm
maybe these ones will not have to be compensated, but I'm talking generally about encroachments and sometimes when they become landed property or they have landed property in their settlement, then some level of compensation comes in.
I guess what I'm saying is that it will not surprise me if
they have
to conversation about compensation.
Yeah, because there will be, I'm sure, some landed property or people who have stalls and all that.
Yes, it will not surprise me if that conversation comes up and some money is allocated to it. And then
sometimes it looks like we create the space for it too. Somebody make sure we allow the system to fester with some of these problems.
Yeah.
And then we have to take a decision to compensate. That's the problem we have. And talking about the railway, and it's a good thing that we're being told, and it's been reported on page 4 of the Daily Statesman newspaper, that when this is completed, all the task of sacking all these people, evicting them, then the service of the shuttle itself will start working. That is supposed to be about, I believe, 11 days from now.
Right.
If not 10 days from now. And, well, there'll be free services. Nobody will be charged to use a shuttle. And from today,
for a few days.
Yes, if you're using that, it also means that from today till the 19th, you're supposed to get that for free.
Although, I mean, they've had to postpone the beginning of that because of these encroachers. So,
obviously
it's not happening today.
Right.
But once they've dealt with these people, apparently the Minister for Railways has given them 10 days to advise on when they will reopen the passenger service. But those who are squatting have been given 2 weeks to leave, or there's a 2-week special exercise to clear them. So I guess it's after these 2 weeks that the free service will then begin. But this was supposed to be to commemorate the 120th anniversary of the railway. Well, this is a bit of a blight on that celebration, I guess.
Yes, definitely. It's also quite interesting for us to note that the main lines that were drawn by the colonialists usually are connected to where our resources are. And the use of rail in the modern world has moved beyond just connecting rail transport to resources to passenger commuting and also making maximum use of that to generate revenue. And so, but we haven't thought beyond what the Gettysburgs and the other colonialists thought about when they put all these structures together. We're still just maintaining. So what we're actually refurbishing is the existing colonial, post-colonial rail lines. And
this is an important point you've made, because when this ministry was created, there were some very, very high goals, of connecting the whole nation via rail, revolutionizing how we transport ourselves. But if all we end up doing is, revamping existing lines, there will be a lot of criticism. I do know that they are building some new lines from the western region.
And as part of the new funding we have from China, we're supposed to have existing lines. Those will be a good initiative for all of us to enjoy. Because
I would absolutely love to take that trip to Tema via rail. I can't wait for them to start. Yes, I can't wait for them to start so I can go take a trip. Take a ride to Tema on the rail and see each stop.
I would want to take the one that will be from Accra to Tamale or Kumasi if it ever happens.
Yeah, that would be good too. Anyway, we can dream. Let's see if we can bring it to reality.
We'll be talking the banking crisis as well, and the consolidated bank is always there for us to talk about, because we know that what has come to the fore is the Ghana Amalgamated Trust. It's supposed to be a special purpose vehicle, supposed to help streamline all the bottlenecks as far as the banks that, of course, they've been able to pass through, but then they are giving that sort of cushion.
Because they have not been able to meet the minimum capitalization
some additional
requirements.
for them to.
So they need some extra money to do that. But according to the government, these banks, 5 of them that are going to benefit from this support, are solvent. So they met the previous capitalization requirements, and they are solvent. They haven't broken any regulations and so forth. And so based on that, they qualify for this support from the Amalgamated Trust. Now, government doesn't want to put its own money into this. So what they are doing is they are getting private pension funds to invest. Of course, pension funds have to find investments in order to, make their beneficiaries' money profitable. But they have some benchmarks on how much profit they should be making. So I guess we should all be interested in whether these banks are capable of making those percentages in terms of profit for the Amalgamated Trust as an investor, because that's what they are now. When they put their money in, they are investors. So would they be making the 30% and so forth that pension funds are expected to make? So today we'll have a discussion about that, see how this is all going to go. Who are these pension funds? How did government, sell the idea to them? And who selected the 5 banks? Was it government or was it the Amalgamated Trust? So we'll learn about it all today. But, 2 banks had their licenses completely revoked, and they were consolidated into Consolidated Bank. Those banks were Premium Bank and Heritage Bank. Out of the 2, Heritage Bank has responded to the Bank of Ghana, when the government when the Bank of Ghana issued a statement at a press conference last Friday, they explained their perspective of why Heritage Bank has lost its license. And they mentioned several things. They talked about the fact that the source of funding was suspicious, and also that the individuals that form the bank, mainly their major shareholder, Mr. Agongo, was not a fit and proper person to hold that position. But here is the statement by the former board of directors of Heritage Bank Limited, which is currently under receivership. Let me go through it quickly. The Bank of Ghana on Friday the 4th announced the revocation of the banking license of Heritage Bank Limited on the following grounds. 1. Suspicions relating to the source of the bank's capital and matters related therewith, including the claim that it was derived from contracts with COCOBOD, which were the subject matter of an ongoing criminal prosecution. 2. Issues around the shareholding of the bank and alleged non-disclosure of ultimate beneficial shareholders. 3. Several related party transactions which were not above board. And 4. The significant shareholder was not fit and proper. We would have preferred not to enter into any public disputation about these matters with the central bank, so as not to further darken the cloud that hangs over the ongoing banking sector reforms. However, we owe a duty to ourselves, our cherished customers, and our dedicated staff, who in the face of numerous challenges remain committed to the vision of the bank, to the very end, and to the general public, who have been keen observers of the developments in the banking sector, to clarify certain claims in the press release by the Bank of Ghana that are either complete falsehoods or inaccurate at best. We wish therefore to state as follows. 1. Suspicious source of capital and related matters. We find it puzzling that the Bank of Ghana should now be disputing the existence of a contract between HBL's main shareholder and COCOBOD, when the bank, as part of its due diligence ahead of the granting of HBL's provisional banking license, had requested and received confirmation from COCOBOD of the existence of the contractual arrangements between the COCOBOD and the said shareholder. We also want to state on record that Heritage Bank never received, nor is the board aware of, any order from the High Court, or any other court for that matter, for disclosures relating to any contract involving Mr. Seydou Agongo. Indeed, we are hearing of this matter for the very first time through the governor's news conference. In any case, we are unable to fathom why the High Court would order Heritage Bank to make disclosures in respect of a contract that it is not a party to or a custodian of. Furthermore, it is even more puzzling that the Bank of Ghana would claim it has no knowledge of Mr. Seydou Agongo being a shareholder of Sarago Limited. The shareholding structure of Sarago Limited is a matter of public record, since it is a registered company at the Registrar General's Department. More importantly, the Bank of Ghana, in its own provisional license to Heritage Bank, stated as a condition that the concentration of HBL's shareholding in Mr. Seydou Agongo, let's come down and finish that sentence. Let me finish that sentence. Come down, please. Mr. Seydou Agongo and Sarago Limited be diluted within 3 years of the commencement of operations. Mr. Agongo's association with Sarago Limited was thus known to the Bank of Ghana at the time of the licensing. All right, and there are several other claims that they are refuting, including the issue of the license being revoked, partly because they have made several related party transactions. Well, they outline these related party transactions. They say one of them is a loan, 6 million, an overdraft of 3 million as well, to one company called Sash Alliance, and that this loan was fully collateralized and duly approved by the board. Also, another company has a vehicle leasing contract with Heritage Bank, and they provided Heritage Bank with vehicles. Contract was terminated when the bank purchased the vehicles. And Kedge Company Limited is the third one, and they rent property to some of Heritage Bank's branches. Heritage Bank has no exposure to any of the companies mentioned. That is the point they make, apart from the credit facility to Sash Alliance, which the board approved. And then finally, they say they are not sure how the significant shareholder can be deemed as not fit and proper, but the Bank of Ghana can deal with him in any way that they deem appropriate. Interesting. And they say that the shareholder should deal with that matter. Why the bank should lose its license on that, they are not sure. Now, this was issued by the erstwhile board. It doesn't have any signatures, but that is the information that we have. It's the latest information in this saga. And of course, today, when we speak to, when the Super Morning Show speaks to Elsie Awaji, the Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, we will put this to her and see how she explains the Bank of Ghana's position.
Okay, so we'll do the transition. Go and look at myJawline.com. We'll wrap up with some sports stories, and then we'll come back after sports with some great conversation on the banking crisis thereof, and it depends on what you want to believe and say. We'll say that at least the crisis is behind us, the main one, or just trying to tighten the knots and trying to get everything into full gear. Let's go to myJawline.com. So we have photos, Nandom TV's Stroma winner, rights, lands, music label deal.
Righteous is his name.
Okay, Righteous. Oh, Righteous. Constitution Day, Gimpa Rector backs January 7 public holiday. Well, what he said was that if it will be meaningful and that we need to have activities simultaneously organized during the day across various MMDAs to make a lot of sense of people getting into the groove. That's what he really meant. I say he fully endorsed it. It had to be put into perspective. Yes. He has no option, really. It's a holiday. Yeah. So it's not about him endorsing or not. All right, Kojo.
Yeah, World Bank's Kim to resign on the 1st of February. Now, this is a resignation coming more than 3 years ahead of the expiration of his term. I wonder whether this is to save face over something naughty. I hope not, but he's bowing out more than 3 years before he's supposed to. Of course, you can read about Nana Nsakwau's That's My Opinion. He called Thinking Big in 2019. Interesting stuff. Constitution Day is important for introspection. Kojo Nkrumah said that to Roland yesterday. UK, Ghanaian lawyer ordered to repay £22 million that he made from fake legal claims. This dude might end up in prison if he's successfully prosecuted, but it's quite a shock. He made a lot of money, but apparently so much of it was from fake claims.
Yeah.
The UK has this legal aid system. So if you can't afford a lawyer, the government will pay.
Like the way we have it.
Yes. So this guy's firm claimed that they had represented a number of people when they hadn't. And they
that's fraud.
£22 million.
Forging.
This is, anyway, this is the government's case.
Okay.
Yeah. That this company allegedly claimed £22 million from the government as fake claims. Nungwa, police begin investigations into alleged suicide by officer. We told the story yesterday. And police vow to clamp down on errant private security firms. Right, now that's some fascinating stuff, to be honest.
And you know, yesterday, Professor Bonzi Simpsons talked about how we need to make sure the whole system of governance and also the complete separation of powers was observed absolutely or to the letter. In that, if you're a member of parliament, then you should not have any business to do with the executive by being a minister. But you know that our constitution, we're told, and those who decided to put together the constitution through the Constituent Assembly and all that, they did a hybrid, we're told. And so we have at least some members of parliament, and the president, who is the head of the executive, is compelled to pick a certain percentage or number of parliamentarians to become ministers of state. And I think I seem to agree with Professor Bonzi Simpson's comments on the subject, or his own views on the subject, in that we've seen that we have so many competent people on the outside, or even within the mainstream political parties.
Yeah.
And they will not be given the opportunity to contribute meaningfully to the process of governance because the Constitution is compelling the president to select a number of his ministers from Parliament.
Yeah.
Ultimately also, it tends to affect the quality of work and the contribution of those individuals who are chosen as ministers and to their work as Parliament. And I don't know whether we've been able to do an assessment of the contribution of Parliament to the overall governance structure we've practiced since 1993. And if we've not been able to do that work, then we need to do it now.
Yeah.
But even just by observation, you have to still question the relevance of that provision in the Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, I think it had a particular goal in mind.
Yeah, sure.
And it achieves that goal very well. It allows the executive to escape the scrutiny of the legislature. That's it. That is the purpose of that provision. There's no other benefit of the president being forced to pick 60% of his executive from the legislature. There's no benefit apart from that, you know. And I think we need to just, I don't know, I was going to say call a spade, but we need to stop pretending we don't know reality, you know, and understand that this is a weakness of our Constitution. It's a weakness, you know. It's a weakness to the legislature. It's a weakness to checks and balances. It's a weakness to democracy, and I'll tell you why. Because we vote these MPs into office to represent us. That's why we vote. That's why they are not appointed by their political parties. That's why MPP or NDC doesn't sit down, have a meeting and say, you will be the MP for this constituency, you will be the MP. We vote so that they will represent us, not their parties. And in fact, we vote because we want people who will represent us in spite of their party affiliation. In spite of it.
Yeah.
But as soon as we vote for you, when you go there, the president co-opts you into his executive, you can never represent us after that. Because we ought to be represented by you checking that the president is doing what he must, that the executive appointees are doing what they must. That's how you represent us. So as soon as you become one of them, then it's done. But, you know, Professor Bonzi Simpson also said that MPs should have a certain minimum academic qualification so that when they go to the House, they can do the job meaningfully. That is another debate that has been going on for a long time. Again, there are two sides to that. I don't know personally where I fall on that matter, because I feel like if it's democracy, then people should choose whomever they want to represent them, whomever. You know, as long as that is the person that the people want, it shouldn't be based on their qualification or their money or anything like that. In the purity of democracy, that's what ought to happen. But at the same time, if the pool from which people are choosing is a pool of all qualified people, then it's even better for the people as well, isn't it? So I don't know. I'm of two minds on that.
I think the argument from my perspective will be, if you take the way we've structured the political party system and the dispensation of what we call democracy since 1993, it is about who is the most servant of a political grouping that gets to serve the state. It is not about necessarily the competence of the individual within the political population who is going to contribute to the development or governance of the state. And I think that is a flaw. So it's something that the parties need to work on. Because if somebody is going through some form of education, some form of development in his early years, is not part of a political grouping, but then has the competence and develops an interest to contribute to his country, should a question be asked, you haven't served as an assembly member, you haven't served as a regional constituency or let's say a political party position, and so you don't qualify, knowing that the people who are chosen, in other words, to represent or to govern when a political party wins power, are only chosen within the ranks and the file of the political grouping, because that's the problem. Because it means that if the political party or the political grouping has a certain limitation in the extent of resource, human resource or social capital,
if they lack certain areas of
deficit,
expertise,
if there's a certain deficit, because if you have a pool, then you can pick from that pool. But if you have limited pool, then you don't offer good resource to the country, and that's a problem.
And for me, what would be the qualification? That's my question. What would be the acceptable qualification for a person to become an MP? Is it a master's degree, a first degree? What if I have a master's degree in crop science? Why does that make me a good MP over somebody who doesn't even have a degree but has been an assemblyman? You know, or but has
or knows the structure of the people and what they like, the social, because it's all about
exactly. So what would you classify as
I think that's
proper qualification?
It's also because of the way the MPs who have been elected since 1993 have exhibited themselves. They've not exhibited largely, if we look at the quantum, that sense of proprietary, but also the ability to be able to have hands-on grasps of what is done in Parliament. And this has widely been reported by the media, observed by the media, observed by civil society, and even the constituents themselves, by the contribution, the quality contribution of the MPs in Parliament.
Indeed, indeed. Well, all right. Well, it's time for us to bring you the headlines from the world of sports. Stay tuned, and of course, after that, we'll be joined by Dr. John Gachi as we get to grips with the Ghana Amalgamated Trust and related issues. Stay there.